कहीं ना कहीं जैट है ना इंजीनियर्स को बेनिफिट करता है।
इंजीनियर्स को बेनिफिट करता है, अच्छी बात है, बट नॉन इंजीनियर्स को भी बेनिफिट करना चाहिए,
करता है,
राइट? दोनों साइड।
And I have a very direct question to you. You may choose not to answer it if you don't feel like, but who creates the question paper? I mean,
When we choose our RCs or when we choose our poem,
on how to approach to choose the right option.
okay, we want students to use their common sense, number one. We never do interview with students. We have conversations with our students. And इतना एक्सेलर है, वैसे जज नहीं करता है स्टूडेंट्स को, बट
इंटेलिजेंस कैसा होता है, कैसा दिखता है, इस पर्टिकुलर एपिसोड से हर किसी ने देखा।
कैट एग्जाम खत्म हो चुका है गाइस। आपके सबकॉन्शियस ब्रेन को ये मैसेज दिलवा दीजिए कि कैट एग्जाम खत्म हो गया है। बट कैट एग्जाम खत्म तो हुआ है, लेकिन यही आगाज है जैट एग्जाम का। अगर आपने जैट एग्जाम फिल किया है और इस पर्टिकुलर वीडियो को एंड तक नहीं देख रहे हो या मिस कर रहे हो कुछ भी इस पर्टिकुलर वीडियो का, तो आप सब कुछ मिस कर रहे हो, क्योंकि आज हमने इनवाइट किया XAT एग्जाम के कन्वीनर डॉक्टर राहुल कुमार शुक्ला को और उनसे हार्ट टू हार्ट कन्वर्सेशंस हुई हैं। ट्रस्ट मी, हमने उनसे बहुत सारे टफ क्वेश्चंस पूछे। इनफैक्ट XAT एग्जाम के पीछे के एल्गोरिदम को भी समझा। इस पर्टिकुलर एपिसोड में बहुत सारे इंसाइट्स आपको मिलने वाले हैं XAT एग्जाम को लेकर। नॉट ओनली दैट, कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग न्यूज़ भी रिवील हुई है जो कि खुद डॉक्टर राहुल कुमार शुक्ला ने इस पर्टिकुलर एपिसोड में की है। काफी इंटेलिजेंट कॉन्वर्सेशंस हैं, डोंट मिस अ मिनट ऑफ इट। बट बिफोर वी प्रोसीड, हिट द लाइक बटन, सब्सक्राइब बटन और बेल आइकन को भी प्रेस कर लो, क्योंकि सुपरग्रैड्स कैट यूट्यूब चैनल पे बहुत सारे अच्छे वीडियोस आने वाले हैं।
So we welcome Dr. Rahul Kumar Shukla on SuperGrads CAT YouTube channel, एक visionary academic और thought leader from XLRI, Xavier School of Management. As the convener of XAT and admissions, Dr. Shukla plays a key role in shaping XLRI's selection process. He is a recipient of prestigious awards like the Fulbright Fellowship and the Star Talk Fellowship from University of Pennsylvania, showcasing his global expertise and innovative approach in education. At XLRI Jamshedpur, Dr. Shukla mentors future leaders with dynamic courses like managerial and leadership communication, और उनका corporate training expertise industry giants जैसे मारुति सुजुकी, ArcelorMittal Nippon और इंडियन ऑयल कॉर्पोरेशन की ग्रोथ में मदद करता है। उन्होंने IIM कोझिकोड, IIM काशीपुर और सिम्बायोसिस जैसे renowned institutions में भी अपना valuable contribution दिया है। Dr. Shukla, we are honored to have you with us today over here.
thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Bhushan ji. I'm very happy to be here. Would love to take any questions you want to throw on me in regard to XAT, XLRI, or in general about admissions.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul.
So Bhushan sir has also joined us over here. He's PD Academics and getting a lot of recognition everywhere after CAT examination 2024. We warmly welcome Bhushan sir over here also in this particular panel discussion. Sir, before we begin, I would like to ask you one question from this particular dais. एक उड़ती खबर आ रही है कि XAT में scientific calculator इस बार आप allow कर रहे हैं. Is it true?
It's absolutely true, and I guess you are the first channel to know this information, right? और इस बार हम लोग साइंटिफिक कैलकुलेटर्स ला रहे हैं अपने एग्जाम में, जिससे कि बच्चों की छोटी छोटी एरर्स ना हो जो कि कैलकुलेशन पे चलते हो जाती थी।
All right. I would like to ask next question, and I think that forms the basis of XAT examination. What's the main philosophy behind designing XAT as a test that emphasizes sections like decision making? So all these questions that we have gathered over here are actually taken from a lot of mentors and after a thorough exercise. And I think students should know this. Why are you including decision making and things like that in XAT examination?
So if you look at our exam, right, we have verbal ability and logical reasoning. Then we have quantitative aptitude, right, and data interpretation.
Right.
So the competencies we are checking through these two sections, they are almost the same as they get tested in other tests. How we differentiate ourselves, we want to understand if our students can apply logical thinking in problem-solving scenarios as well, because that's a very important aspect for selecting business leaders. And that is the reason that XLRI focuses on decision-making along with VALR and quantitative aptitude and data interpretation. That is the objective. But at the end of the day, if you look at our question papers of previous years, which are of decision-making, you would have realized that it's another form of logical reasoning only. But you have to arrive at a decision using the data given in a context, challenge your assumptions, and thinking like a protagonist in that situation.
All right, a powerful point being made by Dr. Shukla over here that problem solving is a key when it comes to managerial aspects, and certainly decision making is helping students build that particular area. Now, the next question from our team is, sir, exam का एक core strength होता है, sir. All right, according to you, what is the core strength of that examination if you compare it with exams like CAT, SNAP, and MAT?
So again, it comes down to the same section, decision making. But
Yeah.
along with decision making, we have another section called general knowledge.
Right.
I'm sure you would have known about that section as well, which comes after these three sections and which is also used to differentiate students. But if you look at the overall exam, definitely decision making makes a difference because that section is also used by other associate schools of XAT in the selection process. But general knowledge is only used for XLRI Jamshedpur campus and XLRI Delhi campus. So these two sections differentiate. And if you look at the core philosophy of our question paper, you will see that in all the three sections, we try to understand if our candidates can think. Thinking is in the core. You take our quantitative section. There also we want students to think. That's why most of our questions actually are application-based questions. If you take verbal section, our questions force you to interpret. That is also about thinking. And decision making definitely is about thinking. So the core philosophy is that we trust analytical and critical thinking. At the same time, decision making and general awareness, they differentiate us from other exams.
Fair points being made by Dr. Shukla over here. If you actually want to crack that examination, then mind your thoughts, because the way you think is clearly reflected in the examination. Now over to you, Bhushan sir, because some academic questions from your end are
Right.
expected. Yeah.
So, Dr. Shukla, I've been appearing in XAT since 2010 just to understand the way paper gets created and how do students respond. So, the first time I appeared in XAT 2010, I was able to clear the XAT sections and cutoff, but could not convert the XLRA interview. But having said this, I've always been in awe of the way question paper is created. And I have a very direct question to you. You may choose not to answer it if you don't feel like. But who creates the question paper? I mean, the question paper is just super awesome. RCs are fabulous. You get to fall in love with the question paper, so to say. Decision making is a fantastic section. So, can you share some light on do the professors themselves get involved? Is it outsourced? I mean, things of that nature.
So thank you for appreciating our question paper. I'm very happy because that's always an intention when we create a question paper.
Right.
When I say we, there is a team of professors who actually put their heart and soul in creating the question
Right.
paper.
And that is clearly
create
visible, sir.
Yeah. And that is actually created in-house. We never outsource our question paper to anybody. And
That-
that's why you would realize that sometimes errors also happen because there's a team which works on it and to err is human, right?
Correct.
But definitely there is an objective in making questions. We always, when we choose our RCs or when we choose our poem, or even when we are creating questions for our quantitative aptitude, the idea is that even if students are not using that score this year for getting admitted, sometimes people take exams just for understanding how that is. There should be some takeaway for them after reading our passages. In fact, you remember there was a passage in 2022 on bullshitting or
Absolutely.
stupidity.
Right.
Right.
There is a
Right.
research on it. Correct.
Right. So normally we believe that this is an abusive term or it's an abuse. No, it's
No,
actually an
right.
academic term.
Correct.
And when, for instance, the current president of the United States, at that time he was in power, at that time this term was very popular in newspapers across the world, right? And we tried to tell our candidates through that RC that a liar and a bullshitter, they are two different
Two
people.
different things.
The intentions are different. Liar is lying to you because that person is trying to achieve
Misguide you,
something.
yeah.
And bullshitter is doing something because bullshitter doesn't know that he is correct or incorrect. He is just saying because he wants to confuse you.
Correct.
Right? So those kinds of messages we try to give. Even if you look at our poems, we talk
Correct.
about identity, love.
Correct.
The objective through our RCs is to have students the understanding of there is something about world at large. There are areas which you should appreciate. As an engineer, as a person from very hardcore skills background, you need to understand that there are soft skills which also you need to appreciate because we live in a world which is full of diversity.
Correct.
So those are the messages we try to give through our paper.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, just to add on, I think I seriously love the passage on falsification, where they discuss falsification and verification, and can they be the ultimate guidelines to establish any scientific evidence and stuff like that. So amazing paper, and kudos to the team who creates a question paper. I think there is no other competitive exam that matches the level of XAT in terms of the output that comes out when you see the question paper. One more question on these lines, sir, I have for you is I have been guiding students, if I can say, facilitating students in decision making section, but there is still a lot of lack of clarity, if I can use that term, on how to approach to choose the right option, because sometimes there is a suboptimal solution that we have to choose. It looks legal, it looks ethical, but maybe because of the context, you're choosing an option which is slightly inferior to the most appropriate option. Can you throw some light on how to approach to choose the right option given the context?
I guess the answer is hidden in what you have said.
Okay.
So the idea is when we create an RC, number one, never try to test students' general knowledge.
Okay.
In the sense, if the question is, for instance, about IT sector.
Right.
So if our question is testing knowledge, people who are working in IT sector will get an upper hand.
Right.
So never try to give those kinds of scenarios where
Right.
knowledge is tested.
Okay.
We want students to use their common sense, number one.
Right.
Number two, like for instance, you have seen a similar situation in your personal life. Now, what you did in your situation, if you bring that knowledge in solving decision-making scenario, you may end up choosing a wrong option because your resources will be very different from the resources present in this particular context.
Correct.
So idea is get guided by your experiences, get guided by your thought process, but you have to think like a person in that scenario.
Right.
You have to use that person's resources. Now you are calling that particular decision suboptimal because you have some optimal solution on the back of your mind.
Right.
But according to that person, that particular solution is optimal solution.
Correct.
Right. Like for instance, I will give you a very bad example. Like I want to choose between, the best B schools, average B schools, and not so very great schools, right? But if I don't do great, right? So I will have to settle with that school which can cater to my needs, or which can help me with my score. I cannot, definitely the ideal solution is that I should go for the best B school.
Correct.
So that is what we are expecting, because that is how life is. I'm sorry for the example. It's a bad example. I want everybody.
It's a very relevant example to understand how to choose the most practical solution.
I agree.
In the given context.
Right. So idea is that you have to understand the context. Sometimes in our lives also,
right,
you have a car at home, you have everything, but your tire is flat. You will have to take an auto.
Correct.
So that's a suboptimal solution. And you are very well dressed for a business meeting, but then you will have to stay with that solution because that's the only solution in that given scenario.
Right.
But there are options like get your tire fixed, or you call your friend and get a car. But calling a friend, if he says I'm not available, and if for instance early morning, those cues are given in the context, then you have to early morning, you cannot get a person who can come and fix your tire, and then it will require some time. So the best option is that there is an auto stand nearby. If that is a cue given in a context, you have to understand there's an auto stand nearby, so you should walk up to the auto stand and take an auto, even if that person is very well dressed, and even if he will be judged in his business meeting. But that's the only solution to go there.
Correct. Thank you so much, sir. It will be a great advice directly coming, if I can use that term, from the horse's mouth. The convener himself is sharing tips on how to approach the decision making. That would be very, very useful. But I have one question for general knowledge section, because if I can remember, general knowledge is not used for shortlisting, but it definitely plays an important role when it comes to XLRI admissions. So how much of an impact, for example, there are some students who are worried कि सर मेरा GK बहुत खराब है, तो क्या कुछ मिनिमम स्कोर रखना पड़ेगा to be able to have an impact, and या ऐसा होगा कि स्कोर खराब है तो एक्सेल में एडमिशन मिलेगा ही नहीं?
देखिए, we look at students holistically, right? तो मैं उस पर अभी आता हूँ. पहले आपको ये बता देता हूँ कि हम लोग स्कोर कहाँ पे यूज करते हैं. डेफिनेटली आपके शॉर्टलिस्ट में नहीं यूज होता है.
राइट.
आपके इंटरव्यू प्रोसेस में उसका कोई रोल नहीं होता है.
ठीक है.
If you have done well in your interview and if your XAT score is good enough, you will definitely get into a merit list.
Okay.
But once the merit list gets created, वहाँ पे आपका जनरल अवेयरनेस का स्कोर और आपका एसए स्कोर ऐड किया जाता है आपके मेरिट के मार्क्स में. और वो आपका नंबर ऊपर नीचे कर देता है. इसीलिए लोग जो बहुत सीरियसली नहीं लेते हैं जीके, या उनको लगता है जीके इतनी वास्ट है, कैसे हाउ विल बी प्रिपेयर, Uske liye we came up with a new idea that we have divided our general knowledge questions into two sets. The current GK question, current affairs GK question and
Right.
static GK question.
Right.
If you have kept your ears and eyes open for last 1 year, you can smartly handle general knowledge current affair questions.
Correct.
Static GK is also not that we are asking you who was ruling over India in the medieval times or
Right.
medieval times, ancient times. We try to ask those questions which you need to know. Like, for instance, world map, if you look at India, looks so small, right? Technically, India is the fifth largest country when it comes to area. You
Right.
should know this thing because it's about our nation. It's about our, pride. It's about our country. So those little things we need to be aware of, right?
Correct.
So that information which is relevant to us as a nation, we try to bring those questions even in static GK.
Right. I had few questions on the scoring part as well, wherein, for example, XAT, I really like about XAT is that it does not have any sectional time limit. So it's a
Correct.
good opportunity for students to switch between sections, maybe decide. In fact, it can also be a criteria for decision making then and there. It's a set
Correct.
for decision making that you have to decide मेरे stronger section पे ज़्यादा time दूँ या मेरे weaker section पे ज़्यादा time दूँ, how to balance. What are your thoughts on the same? What would you advise?
See, the idea is we don't try to test the speed of students in our exam. Though speed is important, I will not say it's not important, it's important. But we don't want to put undue pressure on students because our focus is, can our candidates think? Because we try to evaluate their thinking skills. If we don't give time and then we try to test analytical or critical thinking skills, they will not get tested because students will end up choosing based on, their guesses or
Right.
based on their assumptions. So we want them to think. That's why we give 1 hour 70 minutes for solving these three sections.
Right.
Now, when it comes to choosing which section you want to choose, it's completely your choice. You be wise enough. If, for instance, you are good with verbal and you believe that you can finish verbal in 30 minutes, then you start with verbal. Some people start with the easy section. Some people start with the difficult section because they know that, for instance, for me, verbal is the toughest. QT
Right.
I can easily handle. So they can invest more time in verbal initially, and based on the time remaining with you, they can decide on decision making and QT. It's their choice. But I would again suggest that have that flexibility, use that flexibility. But my suggestion would be that you should have your own rough sectional time for each section.
Right.
So
Very
that
important.
when you are spending time, you know that you have a particular time left for this section, because most of our students, because of this freedom or liberty, they end up spending a lot of time on one section
Right.
and cost them a few questions in other few sections.
Correct. Correct. So it's important
Right?
to balance.
Yes. So wisely, you should
Right.
always draw lines. When there is freedom, it's always said no. When there is freedom, your responsibility goes up. You
Correct.
have to draw your own limitations. Otherwise, you are free, right? And your
Absolutely.
freedom will take you on a ride.
Right. One more question. I think XLRI has put up the question papers, previous year's question papers on the XAT online website. So how
Correct.
relevant are XAT previous papers to prepare? I mean, from the preparation perspective, are they super useful?
I would say you say super useful, yes, if you can understand what we are trying to test. Some people
Right.
are very good at picking patterns from question papers,
Right.
especially in our decision making section. If
Right.
you saw last 7, 8, 10 years question papers, you will develop an understanding of what you need to answer
Correct.
based on.
Right.
But one thing is very clear. We make sure that questions don't get repeated.
Absolutely. I've seen that.
What
Yeah.
we make.
Right. There are no questions that get repeated. But
Yes.
very important point that you made, we can pick patterns. I mean, it's like a game, and once you play the game more often, you get better at it. So you understand what are the skills required. You don't miss out on those clues that are given in context. So things of that nature probably can be of help. I hope I've understood you correctly.
Yeah, sometimes you pick them consciously,
Right.
sometimes you pick them subconsciously.
Right.
Right. So subconsciously you would not be aware of, but
Right.
somewhere your subconscious brain knows that if this is a context, this is how you have to go about.
Correct.
And that's how practice becomes important.
One last question in terms of pattern, sir. XAT is probably the only exam in India currently for MBA entrances that tests poem-based RCs. So, I mean, that has always been a different thing, very interesting. Any tips on how to prepare, any sources on how to prepare for poem-based RCs?
See, I am very sorry to say, but actually, if you look at our exam, That has, see, we are a part of it, and I also take the responsibility. When we give poems in our exam, we destroy poems. How can you ask logical questions on poems, right?
Correct, absolutely. I mean, that's
Right,
yeah. I mean,
right.
it's so heartening to see you sharing this
I
on
agree.
air.
I'm honest enough to accept it.
Right.
But we have made logical questions out of poems. So I would say read poems as RCs, the prose RCs.
Oh, right.
Okay, try to understand them.
Hmm.
If you start feeling the poems, then you will not be able to answer. But poems are meant to be felt. Huh? They appeal to your emotions more,
Right. Right.
right? But the idea of bringing poems in our question paper, the idea behind it was that we need to appreciate creative stuff as well.
Right.
Otherwise, people say, I'm a man of numbers, I don't understand poems.
Hmm.
Come on,
I'm
we all
sorry
fall
for
in love,
interrupting you
right?
in between, sir, but don't you think there is a paradox involved over here? I mean, we was it to make the difficulty levels higher, or we have had some other thought process? Because a lot of people would not consider feeling the poems before reading it. That's why it is coming. Just a thought came in
So
my mind, so I'm
can I
putting
just
it to you.
quickly understand where is the paradox? Just want to understand
See,
that.
just because you clearly mentioned this particular part that we want them to just read it as the RC and not as a poem. So some way
They
over
should
there,
read as a poem, but logically.
logically. Okay,
Yes,
all right,
you have to handle the poems logically, right?
okay.
But good thing is, if you read a poem and you come
Hmm.
across it later after the ZAT is over,
Hmm.
definitely it will strike you and you will read it for many other interpretations. So it's also to spread awareness.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the questions on poems are logical.
Correct. Sir, one last question. I guess there are negative marks for unattempted questions as well. So
Yes.
after I think a series of 8 unattempted questions, there is minus 0.10 negative marking. What is the purpose behind keeping? Because no other exam keeps negative marking for unattempted questions. Again, a unique feature to XAT. What is the purpose?
So the objective was that we wanted students to attempt.
Right. Hmm.
Right. You should not come up with this kind of a mindset that I will only attempt these many questions,
Hmm.
those many questions. That is not what we want from our
Hmm.
students. And that is the reason that we are trying to make our question paper doable.
Hmm.
Every year you would see we are trying to reduce the ambiguity.
Right.
So ideas you need to attempt. Huh? If
Hmm.
you feel like you are not sure and you are leaving is fine.
Fine. Hmm.
Right. But without reading a question, you are leaving is not
Hmm.
fine.
Right.
So we want you to attempt questions which you can do.
Hmm.
If you are not having clarity, I cannot attempt, so you can leave. So
Right.
this fear is always there that if I don't attempt this
Hmm.
passage, then I may unnecessarily lose the marks. So let me read the passage. So they read the passage and they realize, oh, this is a better passage than the previous one. So let me
Right.
find a. This is how we try to push students. Actually, it is to nudge the students to attempt more
More
questions.
questions.
What
All right.
what is our objective? And one thing we have done from last 1 year, we are doing that. This year we have seen the response sheet of our students or
Hmm.
candidates and tried to understand what kind of questions were attempted and what kind of questions were not attempted.
Nice.
And why they were not attempted, we have tried to understand that, and
Hmm.
we have tried to reduce the ambiguity of those questions this year so
Okay.
that they also become doable by the students. We have done difficulty analysis and we
Great,
have
great
tried to make,
initiative, sir.
yes, yes.
A lot of intelligent talks happening over here, but yes, I would like to ask some tough questions now, sir, because we collected the set of questions to make this particular conversation interesting. So we have seen that ZAT traditionally attracts diverse pool of candidates, but some students, when I had a conversation with them, then they told that कहीं ना कहीं ZAT है ना engineers को benefit करता है. What is your thought on that particular line?
The engineers को benefit करता है, अच्छी बात है, बट नॉन इंजीनियर्स को भी बेनिफिट करना चाहिए,
करता है, हाँ, right,
राइट?
right,
दोनों
right.
साइड। आप देखिए, इफ यू लुक एट आवर एग्जाम, हमारा एक सेक्शन है डिसीजन मेकिंग,
Right.
वो दोनों को बेनिफिट करता है।
Hmm.
क्वांट शायद इंजीनियर्स को ज्यादा अपील करेगा इफ हम एज्यूम कर रहे हैं कि दे आर वेरी हाई और वेरी गुड विद नंबर्स। At the same time, non-engineers को verbal. So if somebody is scoring good in verbal, not so great in DM, also not so great in QT, somebody is doing well in QT and not so great in verbal, DM will balance. So बहुत ही बैलेंस्ड एग्जाम है, दोनों साइड्स को केटर करता है, कोशिश
Right.
करता है कि दोनों ही साइड्स के लोग इससे बेनिफिटेड हों। और फिर जनरल अवेयरनेस आता है, वो तो चाहे आप engineer हो, non-engineer हो, आप कोई भी field से आते हो, you will have to know those things. So I guess that is more holistic in comparison to other exams, right?
Right.
So normally because of I guess QT people believe ki engineers, but we have XLRI. If I talk about my school, we don't discriminate. At the same time, that also as a test on behalf of ZAMI, I'm taking the responsibility. We never try to favor or we never try to give undue favor to anybody. And those who do well, it's only because of their hard work.
All right. I think very fair points being made, and I think very, very transparent answers being given. So let me ask one more tough question now, sir. So, XLRI is a very well-known institute when it comes to HR, right? What is the reason behind it? Question number one. And the following question would be, how do you think the XAT examination ensures candidates selected for this particular program have good aptitude in people management as well?
Second question I will ask again, but let me first answer the first question, right?
Sure.
You're saying why HR is very popular, if
Yeah.
I've understood correctly, right?
Yeah.
See, if you get into the genesis of XLRI, back in 1949, right? We are the first B school in India.
Right.
This school was started to actually train the employees of Tata Steel, right? We
Right.
wanted,
Okay.
so the founding fathers of XLRI, they came in, stepped in, and they wanted to spread awareness. Definitely, with the help of Tatas, we started it, right? So if you come to XLRI, you would see that we are in Tata Nagar, and
Correct.
our chairman, our XLRI's chairman is always the MD of Tata Steel. So those things are
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So it was created on those lines, and then it started its own courses in training people in labor relations. That's why the initial name of XLRI was Xavier Labor Relations Institute.
Correct.
So that is how we started. And the founding values, like our founding fathers, they were Jesuit fathers. And I'm sure you know that Jesuits all over the country, wherever they are working,
Right.
the objective is for the greater good. So they started with this thought, and they realized that in business, this is an area where we can actually do things for a greater good. A laborer who is working in a manufacturing firm, if she or he is not aware of her or his rights, they may get exploited. So with
Right.
this thought process, this institute was created. And then we got into human resource management. Earlier, this course, which is very popular these days, was called PMIR. Later, we renamed it as human resource management. And it is one of the best programs in India as well as in Asia Pacific region.
Correct.
And I'm sure you know that when everybody struggles in placements, our HRM students get placed in just 2 days.
Big points
And
being
good
made.
thing is, and the good news is, let me tell your audience that this year we have 3 sections of HR. This year we will add one more section in human resource management. So we would have a batch of 240 students. Earlier, the batch was of 180 students.
That's such a great news and a relief for a lot of students who would be aspiring to get into this college. Fabulous news, sir.
Fabulous news.
Yeah.
So my subsequent question was, sir, does XAT actually test the people management skills as well?
Obviously, if you look at our decision-making section,
Right.
you find at least 3 or 4 scenarios on people skills. Right? If you critically evaluate, right? But more than that, it's our interview process.
Correct.
I'm sure
That deals with it.
Bhushan, you was telling he appeared for interviews,
Yes,
right?
I could not convert it actually.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's
It's
being
maybe
so
not
humble of him, right? That's it.
I agree. Then he did his I guess his admission was in amazing school.
Right.
So and then it's all relative also, right?
Right.
And it may be not a great day, but
Yeah.
idea is that if you look at our interviews also, we never do interviews. We have conversations with our students, especially in HRM program. We sit, we talk to them, and we make them speak. We speak less, they speak more. And that is how we try to understand our candidates.
Right.
So that is why Excel interviews are very difficult to game, because you cannot train people in just talking freely about anything and everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think my next question is befitting your current answer completely. Some students, so this is given to me by one of my mentors, some students apply for both HRM and BM. Is this considered a negative during the interview process? As is why BM when you want to go into HRM as well as vice versa? So I think
Okay. If
yeah,
you're an I'm sure candidates are very intelligent, but
right,
use your intelligence as a candidate.
right,
If Accelerate is giving you a choice to
mhm,
choose BM along with HRM, along with supply chain management, along with general management program,
Right.
they are giving you a choice. How come they will take it negatively?
Mm,
It's a common
taken,
sense thing, right?
taken.
And
correct.
if they say, why have you chosen HR when you are applying for BM? You gave me a choice,
Right.
right? You allowed me to apply for all these programs. So why are you asking this question? But don't say such a thing. But
हाँ, वो
you,
arrogant मान लेंगे आपको.
हाँ, exactly. But then, अरे इतना एक्सेलर वैसे जज नहीं करता है
हाँ,
स्टूडेंट्स को. But technically you should know this.
right.
Right.
Right. कि if they have given you a choice, obviously, when they ask this question, कि you
Mm,
have applied for this program and they are saying you love this, but why have you applied for that
mm,
program? There you have to give a very intelligent answer, and they expect that you satisfy them that
mm.
Mhm.
how you can be a good candidate for BM and HRM.
Both,
And
right.
a candidate
Fair
can do
points.
well in both the programs.
Correct. So I think
Yeah.
going ahead with the conversation, I think Rahul sir, you're done with your questions?
One more question from my side. I
Yeah, go
think,
ahead.
I think, so, I was literally talking to a few of the students over here in our center, and they told me to ask this particularly, XAT is immensely unpredictable examination, more than CAT and any other examination in India. So, how to guide them to stay calm and composed because, that this unpredictability is an issue.
So I will tell you something interesting.
Yeah.
This was considered 3 years back, but since I have taken over the office,
Yeah.
every year I have started publishing the overview of XAT.
All
Mm,
So
right.
we published that 2024 overview, we published that 2025 overview, and we tell what topics can be used to prepare question papers. And the changes we bring. So that
All right.
unpredictability part in regard to the question paper is gone,
right.
right?
Taken.
But
Taken.
definitely, the questions will be on the same lines as they were asked in the past.
Mm,
But we will never allow you to predict the kind of questions which are going to come in the exam, right?
Taken.
You know what kind of questions will come, but which questions will come, we don't want you to predict,
right.
All right.
right?
Okay.
So I guess we have tried to reduce the unpredictability, and we have been able to do it so far.
All right.
Right.
Over to you, Bhushan, sir, now for
Right.
next set of questions. Yeah.
I think just 2 or 3 more questions on the side of motivation. Having done my MBA from a Premier B school, I have really cherished those 2 years. And whatever students I have been able to interact with who have gone to XLRA as well and some other good institutes know the experience. What would be your words of motivation for students to work really hard, clear XAT, get into top B schools? What should be your advice? What would be your advice so that they
So
feel
after
motivated
joining or before
before
joining?
joining? Before joining.
So, or before XAT or after XAT?
Before
That is also.
exactly right now, if they're listening to you, what would you say that work hard because there are a lot of things that they don't even realize that they would miss out
Right.
on if they don't work hard. So something on those lines.
See, I will tell you something very interesting. Now, as we are moving ahead with technology all around
Right.
us, we believe that we can control lots of things. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest error human beings can make.
Mm-hmm.
This world is highly unpredictable.
Right.
We have to learn to live with unpredictability because this world is very volatile.
Mm.
My suggestion would be, as Krishna has also said in Gita, that
Right.
I don't want to sound very spiritual. Definitely, it's important for everybody, but I don't want to lecture students. But there is something very important hidden in what he told Arjun. What you can control should be your focus,
Mm.
and what you cannot control, you should not get
Not
bothered.
Right.
You put your best effort. There's this author called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who has written a famous book called Flow.
Mm.
He says that when challenges go up, you should keep working on your ability.
Right.
If your ability and challenges, they are parallelly flowing, obviously you will develop a flow, you will enjoy the process.
Correct.
But if your challenges are on a higher side, abilities on a lower side, you will develop anxiety. If
Mm.
your abilities on a higher side, challenges are on a lower side, you will develop boredom.
Right.
So try to work on your ability along with challenges you are facing, you will flow. And when
Right.
you flow, good things, amazing things happen to you. And whosoever you believe in, if you believe in God, if you believe in your parents, if you believe in gurus, just a few things, the things which are made out of chance, you put on them or on their good wishes.
Right.
That this is the area which I cannot control, so you take care of. right? Or your school should take care of that, because that's none of your business. You cannot do anything, right?
Fabulous,
But what
fabulous
you
advice,
can
sir.
control, please focus on that.
And in fact, fabulous advice for the book as well. I've read that book, Flow. Amazing, amazing book. In fact, a good suggestion for all of us, irrespective of whether we are appearing for XAT or not. A genuinely good read. Thank you so much, Dr. Rahul. I think I'm done from the questions from my side. Rahul sir, over to you.
I think one more final concluding question, sir. आपके perspective से, what is the one quality that successful XAT candidate consistently exhibit, and how can others cultivate it too?
So if we look at a student from
Yeah.
XLRI perspective, I'm coming from my school's perspective,
Mhm.
because I'm also admissions chair of XLRI along with convener of that.
Right.
So we always look forward to a student who is good at critical thinking.
Right.
Right? Again, there's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Kahneman.
He talks about system 2 thinking. We want those kids who can use system 2 along with system 1. He or she should not jump to conclusions right away. He or she should use logical way of arriving at conclusions. That is what we expect in a manager. Because if you can use system 2 and logical thinking, if you join any company, you will create processes for the company so that tomorrow when you are out of that company, those processes are there and company will not struggle. So you will be a responsible leader. But if you are highly I-centric person and you control everything and you don't create processes and you leave the company will collapse. So idea is that you create processes using system 2, and that is what we expect even our students. And that is why the entire XAT exam is based on analytical and critical thinking process.
All right. I think we had a lengthy conversation. I would admit. I think students who are listening to us should also know this. But इंटेलिजेंस कैसा होता है, कैसा दिखता है, इस पर्टिकुलर एपिसोड से हर किसी ने देखा. So this is the world of intellectual intimacy, intellectual bonding. So if you want to understand what these words actually stand for, just pause this particular video, watch it again and again. Thank you, Dr. Rahul Shukla, for making this day for us. Thank you, Bhushan sir, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Rahul.
both
It
of you.
was fabulous interacting with you. And as I said, amazing opportunity to get to interact and get to know you better. Thanks a lot for agreeing to our request of coming to this podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure students will get benefited. And please take the exam without any anxiety and fear, and I'm sure good places are waiting for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.